Yo, what's going on, everybody? AA Ron here. Welcome back to PanNerdia, and welcome back to another Westworldia, the Westworld breakdown review show. Tonight, we're reviewing Season 3, Episode 5, titled Genre. Now, this title isn't linked to anything in the real world or really kind of connecting, any kind of other art to this show, deriving this title. It's derived from the show itself, from a drug that is taken or forced upon later in this episode. If you guys remember from last episode, episode 4, Liam Dempsey Jr.'s friend who had the drugs, the simulation guy, he gave Dempsey Jr. that genre to hold on to. So keep that in mind going forward, alright? Hence the title of the episode. And man, oh man, did they really take you back to the silent era and back. So it kind of starts off with a little insight into, see what I did there? Sirach himself, right? It has like a conversation as he's speaking French, seemingly to Rehoboam, about his brother and about other outliers, and explaining how or why he built Rehoboam, right? But of course, not delving too deep. It's kind of weird, but it then shifts to like him being out in Brazil, talking to the president of Brazil, and this is when we kind of get the idea of how Sirach controls everything in the world, even the political outcomes. He influences and predicts the outcomes of elections, and even what the leaders are going to do, and if they don't do them, what's going to happen, the worst case scenario shit, just like, when the glasses are put on. So all in all, Sirach pretty much is the god of planet Earth. And it's interesting because, with what he said, kind of having that flashback is his brother told him, well, God simply doesn't exist. Because, during that nuclear thermal explosion in Paris as they were running away, Sirach as a young child asked him, where's God? Why isn't he helping? And well, that's what his brother said. Doesn't exist. But now Sirach is that God there to help. He's going to exist, right? Pretty interesting stuff. But then we get this kind of cool transition, like they have been doing with the Divergence earlier in the season. It shows like the Divergence circle, but then it kind of periscopes within and like the layers of it to do this thing called accessing file, to where this is where we get that insight into Sirach, his past, and not just the thoughts he has, but what Rehoboam has on him, right? So then we get this cool transition of something similar to like the Divergence when they showed with Rehoboam. But now we're getting this thing called accessing file, to where it kind of periscopes within that ring that we've been seeing, that graphical ring, and accessing files, particularly on Sirach, and the history of how he and his brother were actually the ones who originally started building, Rehoboam, all the way from Saul to David to Solomon, and now we're getting Rehoboam. But we finally get to meet Dempsey Sr., outside of the actual little hidden trailers they had for the season. We get to meet him. Turns out the dude's pretty much an asshole and just greedy and for money. So you can see how that kind of ties in. He ends up just being an investor for the startup, and these constant failures that keep happening between the brothers and their Solomon build, hopefully to succeed in predicting future outcomes eventually. Dempsey Sr. kind of starts losing faith, and as we delve deeper into the episode, you see that they finally kind of get a hold of it and end up turning Senior around and getting him interested in what they're doing, because again, like I said, he is a greedy fuck, and turns out he doesn't have as much to do with Rehoboam as initially stated. not only was Sirach his partner, but Sirach was the original creator with his brother. And Sirach's brother kind of is even further beyond the OG creator. So much so that he made himself go crazy over it. Does it remind you of somebody? Arnold. We then cut to Dolores, Caleb, and Junior as they're walking in the tunnel we last left them in last week's episode. Essentially, Dolores starts kind of breaking down to Dempsey what's going on because he's quite curious. She then asks him to, come on, go ahead, take a look, see what Rehoboam tells you. Because he has that surface level access. His glasses just show him, everything about everybody. So he goes to read Dolores and she's a blank slate. There's nothing there for her. And he's just like, what the hell? They don't know she's a host or was a host. That she's an awoken android. They have no idea. But then he goes to read Caleb because Caleb's still, totally Team Dolores. And, Dempsey pretty much, is shown some crazy shit. And we're kind of left in the dark. But all I can say is like, man, he's kind of unsure about Caleb. He's like, you're the worst of them. You don't even know what you did. Basically telling him like, you're really part of some heavy shit. So much so that you've even blocked it out of your head. At least that's what I'm thinking. Traumatic stress. It could be just embedded in Caleb to the point where he had to get rid of it. Maybe there's a way to like delete bad memories in the future. And he did that on purpose. Maybe he did something so bad that he had to forget about it. And there's only fragments of it left. And Dempsey Jr. saw that. Maybe that's why he doesn't do personals, right? Pretty interesting stuff here. But as they're walking down the alleyway, this is when Liam tries to convince Caleb that maybe he's not on the right side, and Caleb continues just to ignore him, and that's when Junior decides to inject Caleb with that genre drug. And man, oh man, is he about to go on a ride? As are we, because the way the episode's filmed, as the genre drug switches genres, it's pretty radical. And it starts with a badass, almost noir-esque trip, as anything is enhanced by like noir detective style trumpets and sounds and snare drums picking up the beat. Very like you can just imagine it's like Dick Tracy vibes in a way, and everything to him starts becoming more elegant. It's essentially like he's in a movie. He's living this trip, and everything's in black and white too, by the way. It's pretty sweet. So they jack a car, and they're scooting and booting. Eventually a cop car pulls them over. I don't know if it was part of like the Rico app, or if these cops were just after them in general because of Dempsey Jr. And following him. But regardless, they got Dolores and them surrounded, and as he's driving, eventually the genre clicks over, right? And he goes from that noir to like this classical music playing, and everything's just like real intense and heightened, because it's just like this. I can't. I didn't write down the song, but you would know it when you listen to it, and it's perfect for it and the way he's feeling. And man, do they step in the action, because Dolores has like a grenade launcher on her. This is not just any ordinary grenade launcher. As Caleb, busts through the moonroof and hangs out. Well, actually, Dolores kicks it out. The cops are chasing. She's pretty much just like aim and shoot. He shoots, but he misses. But hey, guess what? No biggie. Dolores, being the comms hacker extraordinaire, essentially hacks, I guess, or can control the missile she's using like a drone. And after he misses, she controls it to loop back around and hit the car. It's wild, dude. Not only is she doing that, she's essentially using her hacker skills to drive the vehicle, telling it to turn like on a dime at an instant, doing a UE to evade the cops. She's controlling the motorcycle still and having it go around. She slapped a mine on it, so it can be used as a weapon and going at high speed. It's pretty wild, man, and she's intense. And as they're going, switching over and over, I mean, to the point where he's like looking at her, like she's out of this world, and she kind of is. And they play this other classical song, which I can't again remember the title of the song, but it switches over. But Immortal Technique uses a sample of it for his song titled "Dance with the Devil," and that's what I wrote down, because it's essentially like Caleb is dancing with the devil, and they even show it there. I mean, look, she's firing her gun, her machine gun, their badass ARs they have, while flames are awry because they, blew up a couple cop cars, and they're jamming and saving the world, in her eyes at least, the devil's eyes, you could say, and he's taking a dance with her. Pretty wicked, pretty wild, and it continues to get intense from here on out. So this is when it really steps up, man. The plan really comes into action. Why they have Dempsey Jr., why Dolores is in two places at once, multiple places at once, but why she has Connells under control, and while Connells is up at Insight with Bernard, Dolores and Caleb are still on the run, and happen to run into Caleb's friends that he was working with earlier in episode 1, and Marshawn Lynch's character, and their other friend, and they're like, "Oh dang, you do personals now? Okay, well, let's help." And they got a little squad now, so to speak, right? And their goal at this point is to essentially keep Dempsey with them, so he can get them access into all the surface files, so everything that he can see, and expose it to everybody. At this moment, we're assuming everybody just on this train car they're on, the subway car, right? Because they all end up getting on there. But it turns out Dolores really wants to show the entire world what Insight and Serac have planned for everybody, showing them that their lives are totally not based in free will, and they have little to no control on everything, every aspect of their life, to what they're going to be doing the next day, to who they're going to be falling in love with. And well, they do get access to it. Of course, while it's happening though, Bernard is really questioning everything that's going on, to the point where he's beginning to have Connell's, the Connell Dolores, kind of question itself as well. But as he says, we all have a role to play, and that includes you, Bernard, right? All right, we jump into another Access file. This time it's showing how Rehoboam, or I guess maybe Solomon built at this point, has started to predict the stock market, and they're trying to convince Senior to stay on as an investor, and they prove to him that, look, just with this much money, we can turn it into this, and boom, his account goes to like 100 million, and or at least that part of the stock market. And of course, at this point, Senior's totally on board, but it's very interesting that they are just using, it's almost like they already were, using their build to predict what Dempsey would be into, right? Like, what could we use to get his attention? It could have been just face value, the dude's greedy, or they knew that he needed to push, and if they can show him that they can control something as crazy as the stock market and predict that, in his eyes, in Dempsey Senior's eyes, he was unstoppable. The money. But in their eyes, they had everything they needed to continue working on what they really wanted to work on. But first, they needed to find all the divergences or the anomalies that are inevitably going to tear down the system. Boom! We're back on the train, and like I said, I figured she's just showing everybody on the train this truth, right? And as they're able to get the codes to link up and sync up over where Connell's is at as well, and Bernard, everybody on the train begins to read their phone and get the data sent to them, essentially their profile, almost like what the Forge did in Westworld, but it's the file, collected algorithm file for everybody and predicting their future. Everything from people committing suicide to relationship stuff to everything, right? And even Caleb kind of looks at Dolores at this point like, man, maybe this isn't the best thing, but hey, these people know, they'll start spreading the truth. This could be a good thing. It turns out after they leave the train, Dolores was really sending it out to the whole world, right? The whole freaking world is now going to know and is now going to be in disarray because of Dolores. But back over where Connell's is, over in Insight, Stubbs shows up and is ready to kick some ass and begins to fight Connell's. And Stubbs and Bernard get a hold of Connell's Dolores bot, and at this point are essentially like, look, you got to tell us everything you know and what she's planning on doing, because this can't go any further. But right at that moment, because Sirach's already found out that the whole world is a giant divergence at this point, he's freaking out and he's sending out crews. So Sirach sends in some of his crew to go investigate there at the Insight. And that's when Connell's is essentially like, look, we all have a role to play. Some of us might have to go down, but you guys should go because this is going to be me. This is my job to take care of here at this point. And that's when he turns and looks at Bernard and says, you're the only one that we can remake. So it's interesting. At this point, I guess Bernard's the only other host besides Dolores that she can make right now. Which kind of makes me think too, then why the hell did the Musashi not just take Maeve's pearl at that point? That could have been interesting, right? But he had a run. So, but we do know at this time now that the reason Dolores is making copies of herself, because maybe she doesn't know how to make the other pearls of the other hosts, or she wasn't able to get them. Obviously, she probably just was using copies of herself to get an upper hand because she can only trust herself. But in terms of right now and the resources she has, she can't make new hosts or old existing ones come back into fruition. The only one she remembers how to make is Bernard Arnold. So as Caleb and the rest, Dolores and them, come up from the train station, they see the world in disarray and how it's going and how everybody's freaking out. And you can start seeing it in Caleb's mind, like, man, what's going on here? And, this is when Dempsey starts kind of telling Caleb too, like, man, you are the worst of them. Like, you're just like the rest. And Caleb's really kind of tripping out still. And as he's kind of lost in all this chaos, and as he's approaching, this vehicle that they think they're going to take, it opens up, and there's two more gentlemen who are after him, perhaps from the Rico app or some of the cops, the hired cops, and they're getting ready to bust him, shoot him right on spot. Dolores jumps in front, takes the shots, kills them, is not damaged at all, seemingly. Caleb sees it like, what the hell? And they continue on their merry way, but now at this point, he knows something's up. But he could still just be tripping, at least in his own head. That's what he's thinking, right? We then get another accessing file scenario where we see the past and how Senior eventually kind of got curious on what they were really doing. And he found this warehouse where Sirach is essentially keeping all the outliers or anomalies he's able to find in one location and keeping them like housed and separate from everybody. Or how he puts it, Rehoboam is doing it. That way, hey, if he knows where all the outliers are and they're all in one place, then he knows how to control them. And that includes his brother. His brother is one of the outliers. And that's what he says in the episode. Like, it's crazy how the guy who created it ended up becoming one of the things that could possibly destroy it, based on the fact that, well, he's mental. And it's just pretty wild that this, Serac wants to control so much that he even goes so far to control the unpredictable. And maybe there's too much order in that, right? There needs to be a balance at some point. So what is Dolores doing then? Is she the extra weight to teeter everything even further, or is she the counterweight to put it all back in balance? So Connells goes off because Serac's people want him to talk to Serac. So of course they go up to the office where they make Connell's the Connell bot see the Serac hologram, and he's essentially like, look, I know the order came out through this building, so what's it gonna be, man? You gonna tell me what happened or what's up? And we don't know if he knows that's Dolores at this point, right? But he knows something's up, and well, this is when Connell's role truly is over, because he goes up to the computer like he's about to search for the anomaly within Insight, and goes ahead and blows up everybody in the room with one of those mines, including the blonde woman that was met with Dempsey from the first episode. She's from the Avenger movies, the Mantis, and all his men. And Serac, of course, is hologram, so he's fine. But bye Connell's bot. They can see that from the ground level too. They see the whole office or whole section of that building explode, which is crazy. And as Bernard and Stubbs leave, they're noticing how the rest of the world's in disarray as well. And Bernard's like, yep, her plan is getting put into action. And he's like, and I'm pretty sure I'm part of it. So it shows the crew walking on the beach heading towards that boardwalk that Dolores told Caleb he'd commit suicide at. But this is when things start kind of getting sketchy, because the crew that Caleb brought along starts questioning Dempsey a lot, and they're like, kind of like, well, what are we gonna do with him? Dolores is like, we don't need him anymore, so you guys decide. And he's kind of pleading for his life at this point. They even take his glasses so he can't see what people are about anymore. And then looks at Caleb and is like, all of you, are the worst. You're the problem. This is exactly what Rehoboam predicted, and this is why you guys are outliers and why he's keeping you where you're at. And one of the criminals and partners in crime, so to speak, takes it upon themselves to knock Dempsey out of the picture by shooting him. And as he's dying on the beach and they run away, Dolores, of course, trying to get Caleb to come along. He's trying to save Dempsey's life, and he's having more flashbacks to the point where he's starting to see his friend again, Kid Cudi, and some of the sketchy shit they were doing, the stuff that wasn't the military thing, his other flashbacks he was having. And this is when Dempsey has a trip too, and he's kind of like, you did it, you were him, you were the one. And I kind of put it together as, wait, did Caleb, was he hired to kill Dempsey Sr. or something? Like, what did he do? He must have did something so bad, again, that maybe he erased his memory afterwards. And Dempsey Jr. knew, and well, now he's dead, and Dolores and Caleb have to continue to be on the run. But he did not kill Dempsey Sr., because of course we see in the next scene, Serac is the one who kills Dempsey Sr. and stages his death with another file access of Rehoboam. We see how Serac was essentially driving out Senior to his death, as Senior was like, okay, this is getting too far now. The way this thing's predicting everything, you just can't. I mean, humans are humans. And he essentially tells him, like, this is why my brother wanted to kill you, right? We need to take you out of the picture. And he takes him to his burning jet, crashed in the middle of a field. He's like, that's my jet. He's like, exactly. And smashes his head in on one of the wings or whatever, and then essentially drags him into the flames and stages his death, and makes it to where Rehoboam predicted that was going to happen. Now, of course, the whole world doesn't know Rehoboam did that, but they make it believable. And well, that's how Senior passed, and how Sirach got full control, right? And I'm assuming a lot of the access to funds and funds that Senior gave to him from the get-go, right? So, it's pretty apparent that was going to be the case, that Sirach killed Senior. It's almost like a Westworld startup thing, though Ford didn't end up killing Arnold, but in the same sense, there was somebody kind of going a little cuckoo within one of the original creators, the designers, and you can see where work of this nature, work that is dabbling in God's territory, so to speak, in the realm of the gods, is a very dangerous place for man, and kind of reflects on the whole Icarus flying too close to the sun thing they have in the opening scene, or the opening credits of the show this season. Perhaps this is really showing how humans are flying too close to the sun, and what they're creating could be the demise, even though they think they are in fact saving the planet. We then get a interesting transition to Dolores and Sirach talking to each other as Dolores and Caleb make it to the hangar they've been trying to reach. Dolores getting a jet, of course, I'm assuming through Junior's credentials, but Sirach's able to track them down and have a conversation with Dolores, and kind of about how he will find her, but how Dolores is essentially just going to have to figure out how to stop Sirach. And Sirach even mentions, I know you've died so many times now, you think that you're immortal, but you're not. And she's like, look, I can be killed just like you, I just gotta find you first. And at this point too, Caleb's kind of like, alright, what the hell's going on? And as he decides to step on that plane with Dolores and continue to follow her, this is where we know there'll be some answers next week for Caleb, at least, into what Dolores is and why she's really doing what she's doing. Of course, we know, but there's still a lot we don't know about Caleb, that's for sure, and maybe that'll kind of come out more in their conversation as well. Sirach, of course, is extremely pissed about what's going on. We didn't get any Maeve or Man in Black this episode, but next week we do get them, and plenty of them, what it looks like, as well as Dolores' next move and what seems to be a trip to Westworld. We will see. With only 3 episodes left, we got a lot to get to still, but man, did they cover a lot this episode. It was wild. It was a lot of fun. I love the aspects of how they filmed it. I love the aspects of futuristic psychopharma drugs. I love the action. I love the intrigue. I love this show, alright? I freaking do, and I hope you guys do as well. And, well, I hope to see you next week. So, be sure to catch up on Westworld and come to discuss on Westworldia with AA Ron and PanNerdia. We'll see you guys then. Take it easy. Peace out.